In this video, we will look at the factoring form of the distributive property of multiplication. We have already looked at what the distributive property of multiplication means. So let's review it with an example. So we have a rectangle here which has sides of 6 and 17. And to find the area of this rectangle, we would do 6 times 17. And we can rewrite this as 6 times parentheses 10 plus 7 because 10 plus 7 is the same as 17. On the other side, we have two rectangles. This has an area of 6 times 10 and this has an area of 6 times 7. And the two of these rectangles put together, the area of these two rectangles is equal to the area of this big rectangle. So basically we have 6 times parentheses 10 plus 7 is the same as 6 times 10 plus 6 times 7. And that is essentially the distributive property of multiplication. And this form is called expanding because when you are given a times b plus c, we can expand this to a times b plus a times c. So now let's look at the factoring form of the distributive property of multiplication. The factoring form tells us that if we are given a times b plus a times c, we can rewrite this as a times parentheses b plus c. And essentially what we have is there is a common factor, that's a, and we can factor out this common factor and write this as a times parentheses b plus c. So factoring and expanding are opposite processes in the distributive property of multiplication. Let's see why we need to learn about factoring by solving a problem. So how much is 12 times 42 plus 12 times 18? We can solve this problem by doing 12 times 42 and 12 times 18 and then adding the two numbers. But we can also take a shortcut and use the distributive property of multiplication, the factoring form, because we find that there is a common factor. We have 12 that's common to both of these. So we can factor out the 12 and write this as 12 times 42 plus 18. So this would then be 12 times 42 plus 18 equals 60. And now it's much simpler to do 12 times 60 because 12 times 6 is 72. So 12 times 60 is 720. In this problem, we factored out the 12 and the problem became much simpler. So here is another problem, 15 times 34 plus 47 times 15 plus 15 times 19. And we can do this by figuring out 15 times 34 and 47 times 15 and 15 times 19 and then adding up all the answers. But you'll notice that we have a common factor and the common factor is 15. So we have 15 here, here and here. So we can rewrite this as 15 times 34 plus 15 times 47 plus 15 times 19. And since we now have a common factor, we can factor out the 15. So we can write this as 15 times parentheses. So what we are left with is 34 plus, we factored out the 15, so we are left with 47. And we factored out the 15 from here, so we are left with 19. And then we can add these. So 34 plus 47 is 81. 81 plus 19 is 100. So this becomes now 15 times 100. And that is much simpler because that is 1500 or 1500. So you'll notice how the factoring form of the distributive property of multiplication helps us to make problems simpler.